Q&A of the festival. I just want to remind everyone that our final block is tonight at 7 o'clock. Doors will open at 6:30. It's shorter. We have 80 minutes worth of film. We don't take an intermission because we do our awards ceremony immediately after. Also, if you're looking for something to do between the blocks, take advantage of some of the other humanities festival things that are going on. And the White Horse will be serving a signature drink this evening in honor of our local film, Decay. So I'm a little scared, but I'm going to go over and try it. I just want to thank everyone who came today. Those of you that have to leave, please consider coming back tonight. I'm going to put this down for just a second. This is the first time the entire festival that I'm nervous. And the reason I'm nervous is I'm afraid that when I call everybody that has something to do with the making of one of these films, there's going to be one person left in the audience to do the Q&A. So, without further ado, we're going to call everybody down in the order that they screened. The first person I would like to welcome, I actually named this block after seeing his film. I named it Perception, and that is Light Rain. We welcome J. Michael Simpson. Next up, I'm delighted to say I'm having a chance to meet a new director to the Underexposed film family. We're so glad he decided to join the class of 2019. We welcome Rodney Stringfellow and his team from Manhood. The man who is responsible for us either having a good experience at the White Horse this afternoon or a bad one, we'd like to welcome director Chris Anil from Decay. It always warms my heart when I see a returning director submit their film, and it just lightens my day, and I literally can't go do anything else until I see it. We'd like to welcome Murder at the Redlight, Hamilton Young Ward. We're making history tonight. We've never had two films in competition where one is done by the mother and another one stars the son. Welcome for the first time to the Underexposed Film Festival family, Paint the Forest director Karin Neuvirth. Our next director wowed us a couple of years ago for a couple of reasons. One, she is single-handedly, I think, supporting shooting on film, on 16 millimeter, and she brought us two films, and the audience fell in love with her. People still talk about Mr. Man in particular. We welcome to the stage our returning director, Nutt, Divulge. Okay, the other part of the competition between mother and son. We have another new member of the Underexposed Film family, another new 2019 inclusion, and we welcome. They came all the way down from New York. It took them, 3 bus transfers to get to North Carolina and then by car. That pioneering spirit from New York, we welcome the team of Uncle Gareth, director Chris London, and star Miles Neuvirth. I'm going to apologize to the audience now that I didn't have tissues in your seat when this next film aired. Once again, when I see someone new come in, and then I find out that they're actually a Carolina filmmaker and they found us, it warms my heart because this film festival would not have lasted all these years without the support of the Carolina filmmakers. I'd like to welcome to the film family Chris I knew I was going to mess it up. Chris Niespodzianski and John Niespodzianski, the producers and directors of Grandpa, and anyone that's else that you got with you. Well, it was a 50-50 shot that there would be no one left, but delightfully there are. Normally, I would go down the row and ask each one of you a question, but since there are so many of you, I'm going to give you the opportunity first. So if any of you have a question that you'd like to ask any of our filmmakers, let's go ahead and let's start with your questions first. Anyone have a question at this point? Okay, I'll kick it off. My first question goes to Haven. Haven, that was a very deeply moving and I suspect personal memory. Tell us about the process. I know we're in the middle of the Me Too movement, and this is actually the third film we've shown this weekend that deals with it in some aspect. But how did you find your voice for this one?
I would say when the Me Too movement was sort of happening, and all politics aside really, because to me the Me Too movement is so much bigger than politics, very personal. And for me, a lot of friends and family were coming forward, that was just shocking and kind of repulsive, and it was just a whirlwind, I feel like, for a lot of people. And I guess I will say that it's sort of dominoed for a lot of people, and personally for me as well. And I tried to think of a way to tell my story while including other people. And I knew I was going to do something experimental because I didn't really have a ton of words to say, but I had a lot to say. And I wanted to include women who had important things to say. And so I partnered with a domestic violence and sexual assault center in Shreveport, Louisiana, where we shot. And these women, all of them came forward and were very enthusiastic to be a part of the film, which I didn't think would be, the case. Sometimes it takes a while, it's a process. So I wanted to go down there first and just offer something to them. So in the midst of the Me Too movement, I decided to get certified in self-defense because I'm a kickboxing instructor and a personal trainer. And I wanted to think of something that I could do that could actually help, survivors and victims in a very tangible way, rather than just making another Facebook post. I wanted to do something that could possibly help. So I did that in 2017, and so I decided to go down and host a self-defense class and just sit down with the women and talk. And if they wanted to be a part of the film, then they could. And all of them were really enthusiastic, and they were amazing. And I'm really proud of them. I'm really thankful for them. What these women have endured is really just beyond words, and I'm really thankful for them. Norma Whitaker, who at the end, she read the poem that she wrote. She's a published author now. She's been to hell and back, to put it lightly. And she's written 2 books, one of which is a poetry book. And so you hear her poem at the end, talking about her experience. And she's basically an honorary mom for the Northwest Louisiana area. She takes people into her own home. She puts people up in hotels. And she opened the Domestic Violence and Sexual Assault Center. So I really wanted to give her, a big highlight at the end, because it's really not my film, it's theirs. So.
Sticking with what I suspect is a reality, real life driving the film, Hamilton Ward, was that story true? Did that really happen? The murder at the Redlight, is that based on truth?
As far as I know, it is. I haven't looked up into too much detail because I feel like that sort of ruins this sort of aspect of it. I believe it, and if it's not true, I don't want to know it.
Yeah, and the idea of using, was that found footage from your family or just found footage?
That's found footage. I really enjoy just going through 8mm reels and trying to find ways to incorporate that into my own work. So some of those scenes I felt amplified the story. Especially, I think my favorite part was the dinner scene with the woman dancing. For whatever reason, just some random clip and some random movie worked well for that.
Yeah, I wondered because the footage went so well with what he was talking about. I wondered what your process was. Did you write? Did you do the interview or write the script, whichever it were, and then go out and find the footage? Is that how the process worked?
Yeah, for the most part, I did the interview and then just watched it a bunch of times, and then just basically went through stacks of 8mm footage in the garage until I would find the right fit.
Okay.
So I'm glad you think it works.
Oh, that's great. We're going to stick with family right now. So the next question is for Karin from Paint the Forest. Having spoken with you guys and prior to the Q&A, am I correct that this is somewhat of an interpretation of Miles and your idea of what ADD must be like?
Well, yeah. So the painting really, it was just I wanted to capture the actual process, right? It just was an idea that I had in my head for a long time project that I wanted to do, and I asked Miles to write a song for it. And the song that he wrote was well, you know what? Why don't I let him tell you about the song that he wrote?
Yeah, Mom came to me, asked me to write a song, and I did a couple ideas trying to do something to match what the painting ended up being, and none of it really worked. And eventually, I don't know. I've had this idea a lot over the last couple of years that one thing we're seeing a lot more of slowly but surely in all sorts of mediums is people talking about things that we haven't in the past. And I found the one thing that I wish had been talked about more when I was growing up was attention deficit disorder, because it's something I've suffered with most of my life, and I didn't really know what that meant. I was just told I had it, and I was like, okay, cool. So with that kind of idea in my head, bouncing around and not knowing what to make this song about, I kind of went with that. I just decided to kind of just put it out there in a fairly easily digestible way of just a vague idea of what life feels like sometimes. So. Okay.
And we're going to stick with the family theme. Let's move on to Uncle Gareth. First of all, Chris London, director, and Miles, thank you for giving us this as a world premiere. We appreciate you coming down and taking the time to spend the weekend with us and attend all of our events. We're very grateful. So I understand that you guys made this, about a year or so ago, and how did the idea come up? I mean, because it's quite an unusual concept.
So, years ago, I acted in this film called Stranger Than Nixon. That was another bizarre comedy, and the guy that wrote that, we really hit it off. And he told me about this idea that he'd been working on before that never really materialized. And so with him, it was just a bunch of jokes about what could happen if a guy was just hanging out with dead bodies. And so we started working on the script together, and I started fleshing it out more, and it became a thing that was okay, what would drive somebody to do this? Why would this be?
The gods are angry.
Why would this be happening? And just to kind of use that concept as a really absurd way to talk about something that's fairly difficult to talk about, but if you make it ridiculous, it's easier to talk about because it takes a lot of attention out if you're allowed to laugh at it. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, did you guys know each other prior to the casting of this?
We did.
Okay.
And after a couple drafts, I realized that I was basically just writing it in his voice. So there was a point where I told him, he asked me to keep him in mind and try to get him an audition, eventually in the future. And I just told him, I was I'm writing it for you at this point. So that's kind of it.
That's great. Sticking with the family theme, Chris, Grandpa. That was quite the twist. Where did you come up with that idea?
Just a quick correction. Chris is my brother. He couldn't make it here tonight.
So you're John?
I am John. I'm
Okay,
the other half.
all right. Well, I handed you the Chris badge, so I thought, you know.
It's all good. We're brothers, so
That's all right.
practically the same person. We just tried to, we've made a couple films recently, kind of social issues that kind of get brushed aside because in this news cycle and the way the world is today, it's always a 24-hour crisis, and you move on to the next thing. And there's so many mental health issues and other things like PTSD and Alzheimer's that they don't get swept under the rug, but you can only support so much mentally, we all can, and it's so easy to forget things. So we tried to go back to some common, like I said, mental illnesses that we could put a different spin on and maybe bring the story presented a different way. And I think if you present something old in a new way, it always helps raise that awareness and interest. So it just kind of, just as brothers, you kick ideas off, and it just kind of germinated. That was actually shot in Western Pennsylvania, where my brother lives. We shot it about a year ago. We tried to get out there before the snow melted. We got lucky, it was gone the next week. So after he shot it, I did score it right here in South Carolina, nearby Boiling Springs. And I thought it was a very powerful story. And it was something I really poured myself into. I did the music and the sound design for it. And I hope I hit the emotional marks that I was going for.
Well, I know you did for me. I mean, I was just, the first time I saw it, I just started crying. I mean, it touched me. I mean, to have one last perfect day by the person that's supposed to make that your last day was quite the twist. Quite the twist. Okay, the strangest birthday party that I think I've ever seen. Rodney, you know, when I watched your film, I actually sat and thought about it for quite a while because, first of all, the film was made by a bunch of guys who are making a film about women empowerment. You know, what a wonderful concept, I mean, in terms of starting with what we think is just going to be your regular birthday party, and then you got this fierce lioness that just knows what she wants, and she's gonna make the world her way. So tell me about how it came about to be.
Well, when my son turned 13, I had this rite of passage with him and took him for a boxing lesson, and it just stuck in my, and I don't box. I know none of those things. And, but the idea of someone hitting a child as a rite of passage just stuck with me, and the stakes are raised enormously if the child is a young woman. And so that was the idea. And what does it mean? What is the value of a rite of passage? And what does it mean to be a man or to be a woman, and the rules that you're supposed to live up to? And so that's the origin.
Oh. I'm curious, how has it's been to a few screenings now?
Well, actually, no, this is the first, I screened it for the cast and crew, but this is the first festival.
Oh, well, thank you very much. I did not
Yes.
realize that.
It's the world premiere!
All right, it's the world premiere, everyone. You get a world premiere. You get a world premiere. And I want to point out that Straw House Productions,
Yes.
who, all three of these gentlemen right here, Micah, Troublefield, Anil, Dhokai, and Chris Gervais, have been with us since the first year. And they've been such great supporters. And all three of you have something to do with the making of the film. You shot it, right, Micah? And Chris, you did the scoring and the sound. And Anil, you were producing?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, we have so many filmmakers in this town that I don't think until we started doing this that you were aware that we have an active, thriving film community in Rock Hill, South Carolina. And we're so delighted to have you with us again this year. I'm going to move on to Anil's film now, because now we're getting into what I like to call the after their own moniker, the strange and unusual. Okay, Anil, I'm not so sure I'm ever going to want to check into another hotel.
Nice, yeah.
All right, tell us how, okay, I know that you have a tendency to like to do the sci-fi world, so walk us through this one.
So for this one, I just kind of wrote it around the location. My dad has a hotel here in Rock Hill, and I was just trying to think out what a weird thing is that a maid could find in a room, and the Book of the Dead sounded pretty cool. But yeah, so that was pretty much the gist of it, and I just wanted like a simple short story that we could film just over the course of one weekend with a couple of actors.
Okay, and our next film, we're going to talk about Decay, and Chris is not only a film director, but a stage actor and a stage director as well. And I want to talk a little bit about the film, but talk about how one influences the other in terms of your directing a piece like this.
Okay, so I just like telling stories. And if you know me, I tell stories all the time, right? People tell me to shut up because I talk too much. But so yeah, it's just a different way of telling stories. So that's kind of, because with like Decay, there was no real dialogue, and no offense to Zayd or Sarah's not here, no real acting. It was sort of being, and so it wasn't like something like I've done in the past. So.
And where did the birth of this idea come from?
Okay, so my cinematographer, DP Jeff, called Ron Parks and I, and he was like, "Man, let's get together this weekend and shoot something. I just want to shoot something." And I'm like, "I have nothing. We haven't written anything." So we got together. It was like this really cold, shitty day, and we drove around Rock Hill and found interesting things to shoot. My favorite, and it's in there, we wound up probably where we're not supposed to be, but back behind the Neuvirth Coliseum, where like the grounds maintenance people keep their mulch and stuff. And it was, because it was cold, it was steaming. We just thought that was really cool, so we probably spent way too much time filming steaming mulch. And while we were doing it, I was like, there's gotta be something in here. So I started taking still pictures of what Jeff was shooting and texting them to my brother up in New Jersey. And my brother is a poet and a writer by education, if not by paycheck. And he started texting me back this like crazy stream of consciousness stuff that he was getting from the images. And so when we were done shooting, I sat down with, this was before story went kaput, and started trying to format, which is difficult because it was more imagery and stuff like that. And then I called Zayd and Sarah and said, what are you doing like Tuesday night or whatever night of the week it was that we were gonna do it? And we got together and we shot the actors doing their thing. And it was sort of an experiment with, we wanted to use a fog machine. That was, like that was our goal, is to shoot. And now Jeff is addicted to using fog machines. One figures prominently in our one we just finished, and then he went out and bought an even bigger fog machine. So the next one is going to be a remake of The Fog, I think.
Okay. All right, and as I said earlier, when I saw the process for me putting the festival together, people have sometimes asked me, how do you know what you're putting on what day? I have to wait till everything comes in, see what the jury has recommended, and then it becomes what films seem to work naturally together, what type of theme can I come up with. And when J. Michael Simpson's film came in, when I watched it, I had my own, first of all, I love abstract, and I had my own clear idea, my own perception of what I was seeing on that screen. And so I decided that, perception had to be one of the themes this year. And Michael has submitted to us, I think, every year except maybe one. Yeah, 1 year we didn't get anything from him because I don't think he had anything ready. Maybe.
Didn't do anything.
Yeah, yes, but every year, and his themes have always been water-based. So I'm going to turn it over to him to talk about you know, the continuation of a theme that we've been enjoying for quite a while, and I still think that his stuff should be an installation and should be in my home.
We can talk. First of all, as a video, it's just a clip that I took off my front porch during a rainstorm of a street lamp. So that's all you were looking at, really. And so I played around with the editing process until it looked like an abstract painting. I'm trained as a painter. I've been a painter for 40 years. And so when I look at something like that, I probably see the painterliness of it as much as I might see the video portion of it. And if I have a goal, I think throughout these years that I've been here, it's always been the idea of taking video and making it, not making, but marrying it with fine art. And so that's the whole gist right there, is to make that rainstorm become an abstract painting, or the abstract painting, I don't know. But so that's the whole motivation. And my wife and I sit on the front porch all the time, and that's how I come across the image. And of course, we're drinking something red when we're doing that. And I'll see something like that, and I'll go in and get my camera and get it, and then it'll sit in the studio sometimes for a year or two, and then
I saw a cat face in a train. Anybody else want to holler out what they saw?
Did you miss the little frog in the corner?
No, I thought there was some kind of little animal.
Yeah. To some degree, that is the key of abstract. You bring whatever you see to it. So whatever you felt, saw, thought, that's the content of the painting.
Yeah. Now, somebody said to me last night after the Q&A, I really wanted to ask a couple of questions, but I didn't want to bombard them. You know, they're probably tired, and they probably just, you know, don't want to answer any questions. The reason they're here is because they want you to ask them questions. So don't be shy. I'm going to give you all a chance now to take a turn and ask questions of any of the films that you see here. So I'd like to turn it on to you. Teresa, I think you had a question.
Well, I always have questions. I question everything. The 10th birthday was hysterically wonderful. The little actress in it, is she a true actress, or is she?
Yeah, this was her first film, but she is. Thank you. She is an actress, and Kennedy Johnson. She lives out in LA. We were fortunate enough to get her because she was spending the summer with her grandparents in Georgia.
I'll be following that. She's absolutely wonderful.
Wasn't she? Oh my goodness, she was excellent.
It was a great topic. I wondered, actually, and I guess you answered the question earlier, if you got pictures with your father when you came up whatever age.
No, I did not go through that. If I can just take a second, I was talking to my wife's cousin about the rituals, and she was speaking about when she was growing up, there were things her father, particularly when she had her first period, that all of a sudden he was no longer hands-on, and the things that he had to teach her, the things that he had to teach were exclusively to her brother. And it really struck me, this idea that even though he loves her father loved her, but to see that you're different than I am, and that what I'm going to give you is going to be different. And that just, the more I chew on that, that's just so wrong. And that I think to a certain degree, I think the idea of masculinity versus femininity is incorrect.
Yeah.
Meaning that, because it's a hierarchy.
No, I recognize that.
Yeah.
My dad took my brothers fishing, and they were afraid of water, and I love fishing. And I love fishing, but he was forced to take me with him.
Yeah,
I just thought it was great.
Yeah, my father forced me to go hunting, and I was like, I'm not shooting a rabbit.
And as somebody had 3 brothers and no sisters, it really, I mean, that film really spoke to me. You know, because I could do everything that they could do, but I wasn't expected to do it. So yeah, I mean, your film really hit home for me personally.
Thank you so much.
All right, we've got time for questions. Yes.
What advice would you give to new filmmakers?
Anybody in particular you want to ask that to? Okay. How about if we have one of our newer filmmakers answer the question first, and then we'll have somebody from Straw House answer. Okay, go ahead, Chris.
I think the biggest thing, and this is with, like, I've seen a lot of people, being in New York, I see a lot of people that go through it, and I think the biggest, most important thing really doesn't have that much to do with the technical aspects of it. You can always find people who will help you with the technical aspects. The most important thing is just that you figure out why you want to do it, what kind of messages you want to put out there, and you just commit to trying to tell stories that fulfill that message. Everything else, like, falls into place after that. Like, the most important thing is that you know why you're doing it.
Okay, let's have one of our more seasoned guys, who down here from Team Stronghouse wants to take it.
I think that's a perfect answer, honestly, especially because it applies to any, as you guys saw today, there's all kinds of ways to make movies. I think he said it best, figure out why you want to do it, and then the sort of why part is always what matters. Like, if you're a writer, you always ask why. Like, I think everybody kind of has ideas for stories. I bet a lot of people here have ideas for stories. And sometimes when you're writing, you like lose where you're going, and just always ask yourself why. Why did I like that idea? And you can literally keep doing that until you hit the final export. Well, why do I like this? Why is this good? And it'll sort of unlock things for you. And if you're doing traditional narrative on a practical level, worry about performances and getting quality sound. Those are the two things that audiences, there should be the roughest on by instinct, not because they're being jerks. They will instinctually reject bad sound. It's just the way the brain works.
Okay, another question? Okay, I have one, because I know some of you are filmmakers by trade. How many are artists that actually are painters, okay?
There's one right here.
Yeah, and okay, Karin. Okay, Karin. We're going to Karin. And that is the dance portion for today. So Karin, you're a painter, and was this your first foray into film?
Oh yes, definitely. It is, and really it was like no budget. It was a lot of trial and error, but there was just like something I wanted to do, and I set my mind to it.
Yeah.
How'd you do it?
And Hamilton, you're a painter as well, or are you not?
Yeah, I'm a photographer. He said art.
Photographer. Okay, we'll get to that in a second. I'd like to pass the mic back down to Michael then. Michael, was it painting that drove you to film, or was that just something that just grew out of left field?
Well, it was a real accident, really. I had a residency as a painter at the McCall Center for the Arts up in Charlotte. And I wanted to turn to digital photography because I was using that to photograph this river that I often go to for imagery, and was making paintings out of that. And the camera was being used to document a show that they had come in. So they gave me a video camera, a Sony video camera. I didn't even know which end to really point. And I had some amazing shots of my feet in the ground to begin with. My first few footage, little bit of footage is that. So that's what kicked it off. And one of the things I was doing with the camera, and I think my photographer friend can adapt, is that I could take a roll of film and get like 36 shots of this river. Well, I usually take 2 rolls of film, that's 72 shots. Well, then I took this video camera and I got 25 minutes of footage at 30 pictures per second. And my mind just like flopped open. I mean, it was just amazing the number of possibilities, the number of scenes that I could see in that river, which all of a sudden said, well, each one of those is one little flash of a moment going by. And if you can take that to the video that you've just seen, that's kind of where my head's at most of the time. It's a lot about seeing something now, realizing that your brain's not going to see it till a millisecond later, having things pass you by so quickly. It just really opens me up to the possibilities. And so every time I look at a frame of video, I'm looking at a painting or a drawing. And I very often try to make them into that.
Okay. And Hamilton, for you, was it a natural jump from still photography into film, or was this something that just evolved very gradually?
I think it evolved gradually. I had a great education at UNC Charlotte and got into photography there, and I just wanted to kind of push that more and more. Like you said, I think I wanted to, I realized how much more I could get with the camera, a video camera, than I could with still photography and the stories I could tell.
And Haven, you seem to, I've seen film from you in color, but you seem to be so comfortable in a world of black and white. And first of all, I want to commend you for keeping film sacred.
Thank you.
I'm not kidding when I say I think you're single-handedly not going to let it die. So talk about this. Why do you see things in black and white, and yet they're so vivid?
That's a really good question. And you mentioned my film that was here a couple years ago, Mr. Man. Sometimes I dream in black and white. Quite literally, like I have nightmares and they're in black and white. And I don't know what it is. It's something about, I think, taking away the color from something that makes it a little more eerie, and maybe you focus more on the movements. I'm not really sure exactly how to put it into words, but a lot of my films, in fact, the first 3 films I made were all based off of nightmares that I had. I like horror movies, including Mr. Man. And they were grainy, black and white film dreams. I mean, they were on film, and I knew that they were. Hard to explain, but they were like Super 8 visuals. So I don't know, I think it's part of the eeriness, and then part of just like the raw grittiness too. With the story, I guess I wanted it to have 0 distractions, so maybe the black and white kind of simplified that and made the visuals a little bit more distinct. There's a lot of play with movement. I'm a huge, I'm in the health industry, so I'm huge on physical expression. And when people come and work out with me in my class, it's not just about burning calories here. We're physically expressing, we're using our body. And I think as awesome as the digital age has been, and this generation and social media and all these wonderful things that have come from it, I think we've lost the art of touch and feeling and moving, jumping and grabbing things, and just that art in itself, punching a bag, and just that movement and using that movement to express something. For a lot of people, that's why working out or kickboxing or photography or just any movement, yoga, dance, whatever it is, painting, those movements are life-changing because you're able to express and take in something that you can't really put words to.
Okay, I've got 2 more questions, and then if the audience doesn't... Yes.
How many of the filmmakers have a formal education in film?
It's funny that I didn't pay her. My next question was going to go to Rodney, because not only are you a filmmaker, but don't you teach film as well?
Yes.
All right, all of you raise your hands. Who went to, you mean college? College to trade school? Or? Okay.
For film.
Yeah, for anything. I mean, are you talking about for film or just in general? For film, okay, for film. How many went to film school? Okay. All right. So for you, Rodney, as both a filmmaker and someone that teaches film, is the process of doing your own film at all influenced by anything that comes out of your classroom?
Oh, absolutely. Being an educator influences the work that I produce, and the work absolutely influences what I teach. So, absolutely, I think that I know I'm not the artist that I want to be or will be, but absolutely, having to study to teach has made me a better artist, as well as a better educator. Absolutely.
All right, any other questions? If not, I'm going to okay.
I actually wanted to go back to asking with Aiden. You're kind of talking about like movement and touch, and you specifically like we're talking about like in the digital age. I was wondering if your use of film, in addition to your like personal connection with it like that being like the feeling of your dreams and everything. I guess just like what is the difference for you of like using digital versus using like film?
That's such a good question, and it directly correlates because film is something that you can touch and it's real. Film is basically a series of, and art photographers and all, this, but it's real, it's reality. It's a series of images that are captured, and you can physically hold what the film is, and you hold what you captured. So there's something different, and I've read a lot of articles and books about how the brain translates watching film versus watching something digital, because digital is essentially non-existent. It's kind of like a mirage of something that could be real, whereas film is real. And I didn't grow up in the 70s or 80s, but I grew up in the VHS age, which was still film. But I think we can all kind of agree that when you watch Super 8 film, it definitely hits us differently than watching a digital film. It's just different. There's something that strikes a chord. It's instantly nostalgic, even if you didn't grow up in the 70s. That is for me. And so yeah, there's a ton of stuff that Kodak has released books that kind of break down how the brain scientifically processes film versus digital. So that's a really good question, and I love talking about that, so thank you.
I'm going to take one final question from the audience. If no one has one, I'm going to let, as we say in church, let Chris O'Neill give us the benediction. Your final thoughts. Your final thoughts on film, on either filmmaking, the evolution of your film. You have the floor.
Wow, you're asking for it. I think every year that this is the third year that we've had a film here, I sit back and I'm like, how the hell did we get in? Because I see these films that blow me away, and whether it's like these guys, from down the street, or, folks from, other countries or whatever, I forget the name now, but the one with the Alzheimer's guy in Italy or whatever. It was beautiful, these really beautiful films, and one, it makes me excited. It's like I want to leave here and like shoot something, or get back to writing something that I'm working on, that kind of thing. So, thank you, Karin, for bringing these people together, right?
All you.
Yeah, but you guys are here, and making Rock Hill just that much cooler than it was yesterday, and so that's it. That's my final thought.
Okay, I'm actually going to send you away with my final thought. My name gets used too many times. This is the Arts Council's project, and they supported it all these years, and they took a chance on me. But they are the ones that sustain it. And I can't thank them enough for letting me be a part of it, but they don't get enough credit. So please, when you see Melanie, especially because Melanie works on this all year long. And when you see Deborah, thank her, because this is not an easy thing for them to do. It takes a lot of work, and it takes their attention away from things. The Arts Council has so many things going on at one time. So many things going on at one time. And for them to be able to commit to 4 days of being out of the office at a time when they've got so much other stuff going on, please, on your way out, thank an Arts Council member. All right, we're going to see you back here tonight. Doors open at 6:30.